We've just heard that the government's extended the moratorium where landlords cannot evict tenants or really enforce litigation proceedings against them for non-payment of rent from September quarter day, which is coming up, which is the 29th of September to the end of the year. We're not surprised that this has happened because it's just the first moratorium was made in March for June, and then it was extended to September and has now been extended to year end. I'm not surprised that this has happened, especially with regard to the leisure industry and similar functions who have not been able to open or trade. Casinos aren't open and the roulette wheels aren't spinning, and effectively offices are not going back to the office. I don't think the government could have envisaged, even when they extended in June, that we would still have only 30% of the West End occupied at the moment, if it's that figure. We've done a survey which shows that 50% of office occupiers are drastically cutting down on their space. And why have the government extended, one asks? Number one, they want to keep unemployment, obviously. Secondly, they couldn't envisage the difficulties which tenants are finding. And they don't want landlords to go in after September quarter day, if they lifted the moratorium, and suddenly make a rent demand for 9 months' rent, because obviously the quarterly rent in advance is due, and then tenants just go bust all over the place, so they're trying to keep employment together. What's needed and what is the message to landlords and tenants is to be proactive in connection with the negotiations. We've had 6 months of negotiating since March, when we first knew that this problem was coming about, and the first 2 months were actually convincing landlords that they're in the same boat as their tenant, because if they lose the tenant, they haven't got a very thick market to go into. They've got an incredibly thin market of demand, and it will be from people in the office sector, people downsizing, which we're experiencing enormously at the moment. Plug and play offices are in vogue. Self-contained buildings are in vogue. Co-working is not in vogue, and nor are serviced offices, from the results of our survey, and people want their own space. There will be a little bit of extra space needed on the office sector for social distancing, but with 30% of staff not returning to work, and actually most companies will probably do rotations, one team A on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, team B Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and team C Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or similar, where they can get all people into the office together. I'm a great proponent that being in the office is a necessity, and I think offices are here to last, but I am concerned about the possible drop in rents. Lehman's crashed by 32% between June 08 and December 08, where we handled 3 rent reviews in the same building, Queensbury House, Old Burlington Street, 14,000 square foot floors, which went £102, £78 and £68 a square foot respectively in a period of 6 months, and took until March 2015 to recover. Hopefully that was a financial crisis, but now we have a different situation, which is a mindset crisis of whether people really want to go on trains to get to the office, whether they want to commute. Generally, most people in London actually live outside London and have to take a train or a tube or similar, whether they actually want to be in the office at all, because people have learnt to work from home with Zoom meetings and similar, and the results speak for themselves. Our survey is available at request, and we have approached 8,000 companies and are just going to approach another 8,000 to get further justification of our results. The results were surprising and painted a much bleaker picture in the office sector than I expected. What are we going to do now? Go on to all landlords with whom we're in negotiations, and also go on to tenants where we're acting for landlords in negotiations, to try and conclude those negotiations between now and December, bearing in mind that surely the government moratorium is going to have to be lifted sometime. There are draconian measures which governments can take in connection with negotiations, and that came about in the rent freeze, which I think, if I remember correctly, was in 1974, where if a landlord increased a rent on a rent review in April 74 from 100,000 a year to 200,000 a year, it took until, I think it was May 75, before that was lifted and the increased rent was actually written off. So unless unless we can find a solution to the landlord-tenant relationship, the tripartite relationship between landlords, tenants and bankers, solving how we go forwards in connection with tenants who genuinely can't afford to pay their rent, I don't know what's going to happen. Crystal ball's certainly got some grey clouds around it. It was black clouds until the government moratorium got lifted, because I was very concerned about hundreds and hundreds of stat demands and winding up orders being sent on the 30th of September if the moratorium had been lifted.